What a wild ride 2025 has been for Geelong. Success on the field, reaching another grand final, but trouble off it, and the once admired rock solid culture questioned for the first time under Chris Scott. It's not just Geelong and some of their players that have been put under a microscope, but the AFL themselves and their reactions to many of the events that have transpired with the football club. The latest big news story added another layer of complexity and even more questions with the most consistent football program in the past 20 years. Let's get to the latest news. Channel 7's Mitch Cleary dropped the report that the AFL had given Geelong a $77,500 fine due to issues with third-party payment breaches. It is of course noteworthy that $40,000 of the fine is suspended for the next 2 seasons, meaning they will not have to pay the money if no more breaches are found over that period of time. During this year, Caroline Wilson on the Agenda Setters reported Geelong were expecting fines to do with third-party payment concerns, but it was unclear when the full penalties would be released. But it's not quite as simple as the headlines read. Let's get to the official AFL statement that goes into the deeper details. Now, Geelong alongside Port Adelaide were chosen in 2024 by the competition to go into more detail around their finances and things of that nature. Clearly something was found in the 2024 part of the audit that led to this further investigation. The AFL statement reads, "The AFL and the club agreed to undertake the extended audit following the identification of potential compliance issues related to the disclosure and reporting of third-party arrangements during the conduct of a general audit in 2024. The extended audit included a wider timeframe, 2019 to 2024, and involved the review of extensive documentation as well as interviews with various personnel from the club, club associates and third parties. Again, it's unclear what the initial trigger was, but something had to have come up. The end result of going back to 2019 found multiple non-disclosures or late disclosures of arrangements between Geelong associates and third parties. This occurred in both the AFL and AFLW programs. But the AFL made it clear Geelong did not breach the total player payment limit, or in other words, the salary cap. Now this is where things can get dicey all around. I think the running gag or even suspicion with Geelong is that they get third parties to pay players outside of their contracts so that all of their players do fit under the salary cap. I'm not sure anyone was surprised to hear that part of the audit. It would be extremely difficult to go over the salary cap because it is so highly monitored and AFL contracts would be known at league office. The last time a salary cap breach was known was back in 2013 with Adelaide and Kurt Tippett, and that was for payments made back in the 2009 season. But back to Geelong, some of the breaches have been reported and not everything quite adds up. Mitch Cleary in his Channel 7 report said, "The AFL discovered multiple examples of non-disclosures and late disclosures of deals between CATS personnel and third parties across the AFL and AFLW programs. They include failure to highlight deals with players' personal sponsors that sit outside the club's salary cap and soft cap." Cleary is pointing towards those direct involvements with players and third parties. This doesn't always have to be money either, and could be cars, clothes, and things of that nature. However, John Ralph from the Herald Sun revealed a different angle. He tweeted some details of the actual breaches which the Cats believe are minor: an academy camp held at the farm of a club associate without lodgement, a night of accommodation given out without payment in Queensland, but no breaches involving financial deals. It seems both have reported different types of breaches, and it only makes the findings more interesting. Now, because of confidentiality, it's highly unlikely we will ever know the exact details and who was involved, and that only adds fuel to the fire. Now, the AFL further covered their backs by revealing who was involved in the investigation. An important AFL member was left out. Cleary further went on to say, "The AFL says it undertook the process with assistance from EY Australia. It was led internally by AFL General Counsel Stephen Mead, GM of Clubs and Scheduling David Grossman, and Head of Salary Cap and Soft Cap Jennifer McMillan. The AFL said its GM of Clubs, Finance, Performance and Growth, and former Cats employee Simon Kelleher had no involvement in the investigation. Kelleher joined the AFL in early 2025 after more than 6.5 years with the Cats. But the fine is not the only thing Geelong will have to deal with. They will be under the microscope for the next 2 seasons. The official AFL statement reads, "The club will implement additional compliance requirements which will be actively monitored by the AFL over the next 2 years, including implementation of enhanced internal governance protocols between club employees and third parties, club to maintain active registers of arrangements with club associates and third parties, which may be inspected by the AFL upon request at any time during the period, expanded AFL assurance procedures to be applied to players contracting or recontracting with the club, and expanded disclosure and confirmation procedures that associates of the club must comply with." Geelong CEO Steve Hocking said the club accepted the AFL sanctions for the errors, saying the club will strengthen their governance around similar concerns in the future. That is it for now. But this was just the latest in a range of issues at Geelong. We know about Mad Monday, the shenanigans with Bailey Smith all year, Chris Scott and his interaction with an AFL staffer, just to name a few. But where the main frustration has come from is the AFL's response to Geelong's issues. Every club makes errors, it just happens, but has the punishment been equal? Former Geelong player and commentator Dwayne Russell on SEN said after the punishment for the breaches were revealed, "It does look like Geelong has been very lightly treated there as well, and it is sad that it has been confirmed by the AFL this year, that Geelong does seem to get lighter treatment when it comes to indiscretions of their people. I can see why people would be outraged today. I do think that Geelong has had favourable treatment." Mitch Cleary was on Triple M the same afternoon and said the fine Geelong received was fair enough and probably a little bit unders on what they could have been given. And even GWS CEO Dave Matthews questioned the AFL's response to the Cats' Mad Monday. For all the drama and offence some people in the community took, the AFL left it up to Geelong to self-regulate, and as we know, multiple GWS players were suspended and fined for their dress-ups at the end of last season. Matthews on SEN said, "I have obviously been an interested observer, but this is a broader AFL issue. We need more consistency. The first thing that happened this week is I was getting messages from players and staff saying, so Geelong is going to start the season with players suspended? That's the difficulty. Credit to Geelong because they put out a statement, they said this was unacceptable, they apologised. The question could also be, is there a consequence?" People also asked the same questions around Smith and Scott's interactions in the week leading up to the preliminary final, which were left with no real outcome beside the AFL giving the tick of approval. And it's hard to forget AFL CEO Andrew Dillon visiting Bailey Smith's house alongside other Geelong officials after his infamous Nosebeers Instagram comment. Again, this isn't all to do with Geelong, but the AFL. It's that consistency element and lack of an explanation that has led to all the questions around Geelong. It's been a strange season for the Cats, who will no doubt look to calm some of these off-field fires and get back to what they do best, and that is running the best football program that all envy.